I feel compelled to start this review by telling you that Earth is a good game. You know, it might even be a very good game, but I don't know if it's the pinnacle of board gaming that most other reviews will tell you that it is. Don't get me wrong, this is a good game. There is nothing wrong with this game, except for the things where I'm going to tell you what's wrong with it. And this is a game that I honestly think deserves most of the accolades it has been getting, and yet I felt compelled to make this review to, I guess, do what we do best here at Room and Board: quench your excitement, cure your FOMO, and make sure you don't necessarily run out and purchase a copy and have your expectations so high that you get disappointed. Because I think that could happen. I think that very much could happen with Earth if you're not ready for it, because so many people have been talking about it lately. Now, I've played Earth a decent amount of times, and I really got swept up by it because of the follow mechanic. So the basic premise of Earth, I'll run you through the rules, a quick breakdown of the rules, is that you're going to be getting, oh yeah, there's item number 2. You can see I'm holding on to some punch board here because I got the Kickstarter version. But the basic premise of Earth is you're going to get a bunch of cards. And there is a bunch of cards. A honey bunches of cards, some might say. So many bunches of cards. A ludicrous, oh come on, stack. Yes, there's still more. A ludicrous amount of cards that are gonna fall over, and I'm gonna organize right now because they're going everywhere in the box. And so most of these cards will be these green cards. They're referred to as flora. They're basically plant life, and they will have a number of symbols on them, which we're gonna cover right now. We have in the top left corner the soil symbol, which represents how much soil you need to pay to add this card to your tableau. Below that, there's a little leaf symbol, that's the point symbol. That'll tell you how many points this card is just inherently worth without any additional bonuses. Over, you can see the name of it. It'll say a special name of it. You'll also see another symbol. This will be that particular type of flora, because some other cards will chain with those specific symbols. Then you'll see down here this little circle area, which represents growth. You are going to be growing your flora up into the stratosphere, or, well, as much as this brown symbol says, that's the height, the total height of it. And you can see if you get to the max height, it's worth, again, a certain number of points. Down below, there are a number of squares. Generally, there will be a number of squares. These represent little cube spots that you can put stuff on. Growth cubes as well. What are they called? Sprouts that you can put on here. Basically, every sprout at the end of the game is worth a point. And then finally, below, you'll see a colored bar with a symbol in it. And this will tell you, this will give you an additional action when that specific color action is chosen by you or by anyone. Because the premise, the flow of the game is so simple. And this is why people have been really enjoying this game. And I think it's fairly accessible, but I know my parents personally struggled with it for reasons which we'll talk about later on. On your turn, you take an action. These actions can be one of 4 things. These are listed at the top of your player board, which I'm going to show you now, and I'll describe what these actions do. We have the, doesn't matter what it's called, it's the play cards action, where if you pick this action, you get to play 2 cards, and also draw 4 cards and keep 1 of them. Everybody else gets to play 1 card and just draw 1 card. And so this game has one of my favorite mechanics of all time. It's my 4th favorite mechanic of all time, actually. It's the follow mechanic, which is I get to choose what action everybody does, and I get the better version of that action. That's basically what it is. So everybody else gets the worst version of that action, so they only get to play 1 card instead of 2. Then you have the gain soil action, where if you pick it, you get to gain 5 soil. And you also get to compost 2 cards from the deck. What does composting mean? Well, it means you get points. And you put these cards face down on a little stack, and sometimes you can spend these to maybe get more points. Everybody else has to choose if they get 2 soil or they get 2 compost, basically 2 points. Then we have the sprouts action, where you, if you pick it, the blue action, you get 6 sprouts and 2 soil, and everybody else has a choice of if they want to get 2 sprouts, again 2 points, or 2 soil, 2 card buying power. And then finally you have the growth action, where you get to draw 4 cards and put 2 little tree sections on any of your flora that are out there. And if you didn't choose the action, well, you still get to draw 2 cards, or you get to do 2 little tree sections. And so that's it. You're going to be going around and around and around choosing those actions, but the key thing is that every card you add to your tableau, or almost every card, most of those flora, will have that color attached to them. So soon, your actions become better and better and better. And so while you might have started off by only getting 5 soil and 2 compost, if you've got a whole whack load of red stuff in your tableau, when you take the red action, you can gain 5 soil and 2 compost, and then compost 2 cards from your hand to gain another 3 soil, and then spend 2 soil to gain 4 sprouts, and then spend 2 sprouts to gain 5 sections of tree, and then you get to pull off a section of tree to compost 6 cards from your hand and draw 3 more cards into your hand. And that might be your turn. Anytime somebody picks the red action, you get to do and chain all that stuff. And this is what people love about the game. Understandably so, you get to do so much stuff. This is where I thought it would be a hit with my girlfriend, because she loves games where you get to shop and you get to constantly get stuff. But it also represents, I think, one of the caveats that you should be aware of before blind purchasing this game, in that it soon will become a decent amount to keep track of. Now, the game only lasts until you create your own 4x4 grid, but it still eventually ramps up, and there's still a lot that you have to personally keep track of, and that's something to be aware of. The only other element of the game that I haven't really talked about is there's going to be these sort of public objectives and some private objectives too, things that you need to focus on solely and things that you want to race other people to get. The public objectives are these animals, and so the first person to complete whatever the animal says can put their token down, and they can get 15 points, and then 11 points, and then 8 points, and kind of going down depending upon when you finish that objective. If you finish it, sometimes you may not, and the other person will walk away with 15 points. But when your points are usually in the 200s, higher 100s to the lower 200s, or to the mid 200s, depending upon the game, you know, the difference of 4 points, it feels like a lot. And then you realize, okay, it actually doesn't matter whatsoever. In addition, there will be 2 public objectives that will trigger for certain aspects of your tableau, and then everybody will have their own public objective that they also get to trigger. So the last one that I had was for every flora that you have that has 3 sprout spaces or fewer. Doesn't matter if they're filled, it just matters that I have limited myself to the amount of points that I can get with sprouts, and so then I'm getting rewarded in another way. That's the basics of the game. I know it might seem like a lot, but it's super simple. Your choices are, hey, am I going to play cards? Nah. Am I going to draw cards? Am I going to get stuff to buy cards? Or am I going to get points? That's it. Those are your choices of actions. And so it is with that simplicity of action and that constant getting of stuff that I feel a lot of people have resonated with, and that I personally resonate with. I think I quite enjoy this game. I don't see myself getting rid of this game either. But I think the biggest downfall of this game is the amount of options that you have. This also might be your biggest plus, but for me, I think it is its biggest downfall because it takes it away from that sort of more accessible realm that I was hoping it to be, and also makes it twofold, a little bit more of a solo experience than an interactive experience. It's not infrequent to have up to 30 cards in your hand. There's a card that you can purchase that's not a flora, but it's a terrain card. These kind of give you bonuses at the sake of sacrificing additional actions in your tableau. There was one that I had in my hand that I didn't get to play because I didn't play very well, or I was building up to it, which gave me a point at the end of the game for every card in my hand. And so I spent my whole game filling my hand with cards, and I had 30 cards to choose from. The amount of stuff that you're going to be getting. It says in the rule book, yeah, when you know you don't want something, just flip it over so you know that's a card you can throw away. Because otherwise, the potential for analysis paralysis and overanalyzing here in this game is huge. This is a game where you just have to kind of play willy-nilly. You say, I'll pick that strategy, I'll kind of go with it. And if you really like optimizing and finding the best solution and the most efficient pathway and creating an incredible engine, I don't think you're going to find that in this game, even though I think that is what this game puts forward. And so I find with that influx of options, that can often leave people to be a bit overwhelmed, and therefore isn't as friendly to new players as I think I personally wanted this to be, or can be. It took me until like my 4th or 5th play before I started to feel comfortable letting some of the cards go. Because I'm that type of person. I'm that type of person who really loves to analyze everything, to find the most efficient puzzle. But if you do that in this game, it drains the life out of the table, and everybody's screaming at you to just pick your action and move on. And often, to be fair to the counterpoint to that, it doesn't necessarily devolve into that too frequently, because you know what tableau you've kind of created, and you go, okay, well, I got a lot of red over there, I guess I'll pick the red action, right? So there's times where it can slow down, but there's times where you just go, I'll pick the red one because I got a lot of red stuff. But it's not necessarily because you've actively focused on creating that red tableau, because there's so many other things to consider. And so it wasn't until like my 4th or 5th play that I started to become comfortable with the iconography and comfortable with the sorts of cards that are out there, because you're never going to be able to depend upon getting that exact card based around your strategy, right? You need to deal with the cards that are in your hand and not think about the cards that aren't, just because there are so many to get through. Another positive negative, depending upon who you are, is that there are so many ways to get points. It's point salad at its earthiest. Everything, oh my goodness, yeah, I forgot about this mountain of cards that I was hiding under here. Everything gives you points, absolutely everything. Your sprouts give you points, cards give you points, trees give you points, terrain give you points, putting things in a little pattern give you points, building things in a column, they give you points if they have the right animal up there. There are so many ways to get points in this game that it's really hard to find that strategy and feel like you haven't just stumbled into a good combo, because there are so many cards in here that could combo with each other, but I honestly think there are too many. I think this isn't as streamlined as it could be, or no, I think that is actually by design. I think the point of this game is that you can't depend on those combos. You have to just play the hand you're dealt and get more and more cards and drown in cards and feel overwhelmed with those cards and say, I guess I'll play this thing next. My other biggest complaint with this game, because I got the Kickstarter version, has to be the ridiculous choice of Kickstarter upgrade in the soil tokens. And then that's why I held onto the punch board and have punched out some soil, because I wanted tokens that gave me 5 soil and 10 soil, and you only have ones from the Kickstarter. When by mid-game, you're gonna be saying, okay, I take the red action, I'm getting 13 soil. So I don't want to have to grab these little pieces of soil that just happen to be formed in a way that if they're standing upright and you're not approaching them from the sides, your fingers just kind of slide right off of them. They made them the most ridiculous, least ergonomic way possible to grab. I don't know why they couldn't just be little black cubes. Honestly, if you look at some of the prototype coverage, they were playing with little black cubes, kind of like little black crystals. That would have been so much better to keep it incorporated. It's just an absolutely ridiculous decision, and if you're like, oh, someone has the Kickstarter version of this game, you don't need to get it whatsoever. That's basically the only upgrade, and it's a ridiculous, dumb one. In addition, I have no idea why the decision was made for these soil tokens to make them the exact same color as the place where it says you should store your soil tokens. There's a little section on your board where it's like, hey, put your soil tokens here. And then when you look down, they kind of just blend into the background. Or why these tokens are not different colors. They're all the same color, but just larger shapes. It baffles my mind when people don't make their denominations of money more distinct from each other and have chosen to make them blend into the actual player board that you're playing on. I mean, that's a minor nitpick, right? Like, it really doesn't matter. It's a silly thing to comment on. There are much larger problems in games, but it is something that I think is just the dumbest thing, and it baffles me that that made it through production. After everything, I think Earth is really fun. I do. I personally think Earth is quite fun. I was let down a bit because I thought it would be a hit with my parents, and it wasn't. I thought it would be a hit with my girlfriend, and it wasn't. It was a hit with my other game group, who are used to making more decisions in a game, let's say. Not necessarily added complexity, but making more decisions. But this was one where I was like, oh, I think this is really going to hit with my folks, and then it didn't, and so that was a little disappointing to me. It's also one where I feel sometimes overwhelmed or a bit aimless in the game by the amount of options that are there. And I like having a little bit more control over my strategy and not just having to be a feather for each wind that blows or happens to land into my hand. That's why I like getting a bunch of cards, and then I don't want to slow down the game. But if you play this regularly with people and you play it at a really sort of snappy pace, I think it's obviously a good game. People are enjoying it for a reason, and that reason is the follow mechanic, because it's a friggin' bomb mechanic that people need to use more. I just don't necessarily think it is the be-all and end-all to board gaming that a lot of the narrative has been, I feel lately at least, around its release. And so that's why I felt compelled to make this review and kind of add my spin on it. It's still like, I think it's a 4 out of 5 for me. 8 out of 10, seal of approval range. I think depending who I play it with. I think that one play where I was excited and I got disappointed, that was like a 3.5. It would never be below a 3.5 for me, but it probably wouldn't hit in that 4.5 range either. Mainly, again, because of the amount of options and my gaming personality of liking to control, or having a little bit more control for an engine builder. Mechanically, though, delicious, delightful. But this is one of those games where if it ever came out with an expansion, I would run screaming in the other way because it already has so much as it is. Also, in terms of price point, I'd say this is fantastic. You get a really fantastic game for the price. I think it was an awesome price on Kickstarter. It was something like 54 bucks Canadian on Kickstarter. And for that, I said it way back in Crowdfunding Countdown. I was like, this is a phenomenal deal. You're getting a heck of a game here. And I still absolutely believe that. I think it is a great price for what it is and to add to your collection. But I think keep in mind that you need to not play this too seriously, I think, to have the best time. Anyway, hopefully that was helpful. If you're still on the fence about Earth and haven't already run out and grabbed a copy, thanks so much for watching. If you're still here, hit the like and subscribe button, because if you don't, I hear you'll get arrested, and I don't want that for you. So good thing you avoided that arrest. The officers were standing by, and you avoided that. Anyway, yeah, thanks for being here. My name's Chris George. I don't have a catchphrase, but I do happen to have these also special purple month cards that give an additional ability to everyone that I'm going to cycle through in the B-roll right now as the days go by. If you happen to want to add more ways to get points into your game, well, these double-sided things will do the trick. Basically, on one side, it shows a victory point condition for a certain type or terrain, and on the other side, it basically shows that same type or terrain, but you get points for it. Or if you look in sort of May and April and March, it can add to effects of a certain action. They're fun little modules to play with. Now you know what they are. Now you've seen them. And I'll see you later. Probably in the next video.